Hello and welcome. Someone asked if I could elaborate on the 9 qualities of the Buddha. A question to provoke me into a Dharma talk on these qualities that we reflect upon in our teacher, the Buddha. The one we, by representation of a Buddha Rupa, a statue, as behind me here, we bow to, mindfully, out of respect for the teacher, in his infinite compassion, having brought to us the Dharma, which is subsequently supported, taught, and practiced by the SANGHA, his lineage of ordained monks and nuns, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, to this day. We call this reflection Buddha Nusati. Buddha Nusati meaning mindfulness of the Buddha. Sati, mindfulness, as in the Noble Eightfold Path. Sammasati, right mindfulness. A good way of ensuring we have right mindfulness is at the beginning of our day, reflecting mindfully on something that induces wholesome mind states and reduces unwholesome mind states. And there's no better way of doing this than by way of these reflections. Now, come Wesak, in the month of May, the full moon of May, the mainly celebrated Buddhist festival and holy day, representing that, the celebration of the Buddha's birth, the day of his enlightenment, and the day of his parinibbana, that is his death, and attainment to full liberation, no further rebirth. I often reflect upon, talk about, at that parinibbana, when all manner of miraculous things were happening, as at his birth, and as at the moment of his enlightenment, when the heavens seem to open and become part of this earthly realm, with flowers springing up everywhere, firstly under the feet of the Buddha as he took his first steps as a newborn, miraculously, and at his parinibbana, his death, when flowers were in abundance, the devas were present, almost a heavenly realm on earth, appearing miraculously before the gathered ensemble. The Buddha's own words were, "Don't reflect on this, the miracles, but my legacy, his legacy, the Buddha's legacy, which is the Dharma, his teachings, and the Vinaya, the first of the 3 books, the Tipitaka, the scriptures, the Buddhist holy scriptures, the Vinaya, the rules, the code of conduct for his Sangha, Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni Sangha, the way monks and nuns conduct themselves in their practice in order to sustain the Buddha Sasana. I'm not sure whether you heard the background noises there, but we have rain. When there's rain, the coconuts and their branches get wet and they fall down. So there's huge bangs and crashes, which one gets used to here. This is my 3rd October living here in Sri Lanka, and it's fair to say, a lot wetter this October than it was in the previous 2. But nothing is certain, everything's subject to change. anicca, Pali, for uncertain or impermanence, but also used to mean and understand uncertainty. But what we can have certainty in, and what we do take refuge in, is this triple gem, the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So on being asked to reflect on the 9 qualities of the Buddha, I thought, well, didn't the Buddha ask us not so much to reflect on those miraculous qualities, but the Dharma and the Sangha? So at his parinibbana, he said his legacy is the Dharma and the Vinaya, meaning really the Sangha, because it is the Vinaya that the Sangha is established upon. And the Sangha being those ordained monks and nuns. At that time, the noble Sangha, Arya Sangha, his closest disciples that didn't succeed him by way of hierarchy and leadership, but remained still living to pass on the Dharma. There was no seat of leadership to be filled, despite these qualities, but his legacy to be fulfilled by our practice. That is not only the practice of the Sangha, but your practice as lay practitioners as a whole. The interdependence of lay practitioners with the Sangha. This has successfully continued and remained unchanged to this day. As a result, and by way of that proclamation, don't worship me, don't honour me, don't make statues, don't make effigies, don't pray to me. I'm gone, thus gone. The Tathagata is a name often used to refer to the Buddha, but used by himself to refer to himself, which literally means thus gone. It doesn't mean holy one, worshipful one, son of God, or Messiah, or prophet. It just means thus gone. Meaning, he's gone, but he showed us the way. So yes, we do reflect on these qualities of the Buddha, Buddhanussati. And every morning, every day at 6 a.m, we chant, Itipiso Bhagavāraham Samma Sambuddho Vijja Charana Sampano Sugato Loka Vidu Anutaro Purisadama Sarati Sata Devananusanam Buddho Bhagavati. Every morning at morning puja, followed by the reflections. These are the reflections on the nine qualities of the Buddha, followed by Swagato Bhagavato Tadamo Santitiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanayiko Pachitam Veditabo Vinuhiti. The reflections, the 6 qualities of the Dharma. So we reflect on the 9 qualities of the Buddha and then the 6 qualities of the Sangha. So Buddhanussati is to put us in a place of wholesome mind states, lead us towards a joyous, a happy state of mind by reflecting on those qualities. Now, the way we do this is, and the purpose of that morning chanting, these reflections, which then go on to reflect the qualities of the Sangha. Again, there are 9, which I'll go into in just a moment. But each morning, Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, Ujupatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, Yadidam Chatari, Purisa Yugani, Ata Purisa Esa Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, Ahuneo, Pahuneo, Dakineo, Anjali Karaneo. We go to our chanting book, we don't just recite the words as we can when we know them in the Pali, But we use those Pali words as triggers, as reminders to reflect on those 9 qualities of the Buddha, 6 qualities of the Dharma, and 9 qualities of the Sangha in our own language, in our own mother tongue, which is what I was asked to elaborate on. But you don't need me to elaborate on those. This should be a reflection each and every day. So take the chanting book, in which there is the translation of those chants in your own language, and read the words. So what does it say in the English for now, as it's the only language I know? Araham is worthy, or worthy of offerings. And someone who's so worthy by way of the attainment of enlightenment, having destroyed the root causes of defilements, greed, hatred, and delusion. Sama Sambuddho is perfectly enlightened. So when we say Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa, Sama Sambuddhassa also comes into Itipiso, Sama Sambuddho. Sama is right in the, we translate it as right in the Noble Eightfold Path, but it's also perfect. And it means in this context, perfectly enlightened. The reason the Buddha was perfectly enlightened was because there was no Dharma then, in the time of the Buddha's awakening. He became awakening and gave us the Dharma. The Dharma was always there, as is come to be reflected upon in the 2nd verse, when reflecting on the qualities of the Dharma, but hadn't been realized, hadn't been discovered, was being covered up by misunderstandings or ignorance or delusions, by rites and rituals, by Sakkaya-ditthi, personality view, people thinking that this body and this thinking brain, its intellect and its physical being, its presence, its achievements, its beauty, its fitness, its strength was the be-all and end-all of existence, not recognizing that this is just a vehicle leading us, or we use to take us towards enlightenment or liberation from the birth, rebirth, and rebirth even into the human realm. So each and every day at 6 a.m. here on YouTube, there have been some hiccups because of the rain, but I think we're slowly, gradually addressing those and managing to resume these live streams again. And we're trying to get the sound just right. So we are reflecting on those 9 qualities. So Sammabuddho is perfectly enlightened one. He discovered the Four Noble Truths without a teacher. He is our teacher. Vijacharana Sampano, accomplished in supreme knowledge and virtuous conduct. So through his practice, firstly as an ascetic for 6 years, and subsequently having realized that the real harsh way wasn't the way, having come from a life of luxury, which also wasn't the way, he discovered the middle way, which he then went on over 45 years to teach his Sangha and leave us this legacy of the Dharma. Sugato. Sugato is attained to enlightenment, but bliss, the joy, the happiness. Sukha, Sugato means bliss, joy, happiness. Lokaviddu is knower of the worlds, understanding the true nature of reality. So to us we know that as knowing of anicca, dukkha, anatta, characteristics of existence. But the Buddha was able to understand this more clearly through his recollection of both not only this world but his previous lives and those of the previous Buddhas at his awakening. But in the Dharma, he's not teaching us and expecting us to have these miraculous powers of insight, to recall our previous lives or the teachings of previous Buddhas, but to see clearly for ourselves the characteristics of existence through our practice in this life. This alone can lead to liberation. So once again, pointing us towards the reflection on the Dharma and the Sangha, rather than just the qualities of the Buddha. So it's suffice to say that this Buddha Nusati is there to evoke wholesome mind states and joy and happiness within ourselves, and is part of our practice. And we bow to the Buddha Rupa, the statue. We offer incense, candles, flowers, by way of mindfully reflecting upon the compassion our teacher, the Buddha, had for subsequent generations in sharing the Dharma, which, as the perfectly enlightened one, without a teacher himself, discovered for himself. Anuttaro Parisadhammo Sarati, an incomparable leader of men to be tamed, the unexcelled charioteer of those to be trained. So, the foremost teacher. But how did he teach? By example, by leadership. A charioteer, the driver of a chariot, guides it skillfully in a direction and is often followed by many others. And this is what we are pointing to, what this verse alludes to. Sata Dewa Manusanam. The teachers not only of us, his Sangha, of bhikkhus, and subsequently bhikkhunis, men and women, laymen and laywomen, upasakas and upasakas, but also devas and gods and those of other realms. But again, these are qualities of the Buddha, not expected in ourselves. And Buddha means awakened one. We give him this name. When, having to refer to himself, the Buddha was just thus gone. Not I am the Buddha, the awakened one, but thus gone. He is thus gone. Bhagawa, the Blessed One, honoured, highest. So these are the qualities of the Buddha. But what was the Buddha saying at his parinibbana? Reflect upon the legacy and practice. The Buddha taught us the Dharma. There is suffering and the end of suffering. The end of suffering is the eradication of greed, hatred and delusion. And that is enlightenment. And those 9 qualities are the example the Buddha set. And establishing with the Vinaya, his Sangha, for us to follow their example. And also as lay practitioners, you have the opportunity to support them in that practice. Support your Sangha in order that they can continue to teach you and support you in your practice. Because they renounce worldly life, any money, any comforts or assets or chattels or goods that they would have held in lay life are left, given away, in exchange for 3 robes, a bowl, a belt, a needle and cotton to keep those in good order, a razor to shave one's head twice a month, the day before Uposatha, and a water filter or a cup to just get water, drink water. The only thing a monk or a nun, a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni is allowed to help themselves to is water. So we have a cup, we can go and get our water, That's it. Everything else, we're dependent on lay people for their support. We can't just pick up a piece of food and eat it if it hasn't been offered to us first. Or even take a drink unless it's just water. And hot water is allowed. And some kind of tonic or medicine, which does cover coffee or tea in its simplest form, just black. So we can make, perhaps, at the extreme of those conditions, make a cup of coffee, black coffee or black tea, if we're alone. That's allowed. But nothing more than that. Or if it's been offered previously in the day, a cold soda or something like that. So I do have tea and coffee in the afternoon if it's available, if I've had it as something we can store, and also soda or drinks of this nature to give one a little energy and refreshment in the afternoons. And that, through your generous support or locals' generous support here, I usually have. But other than that, the Sangha is dependent on you. So the Dharma, 6 qualities of the Dharma. These are what we also should reflect upon. When we take refuge in the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha. So we don't isolate just the 9 qualities of the Buddha and elaborate on those. Now the next question coming up from the same individual will be, please can I elaborate on the 6 qualities of the Dharmas, and then please can I elaborate on the 9 qualities of the Sangha. That's his way of trying to direct what Dharma talks I'm giving. But this is not the way it works. This isn't a Dharma talk. I'm looking at some notes in front of me just to try and remember not to forget any of the qualities, even if I've chanted them thousands of times each and every morning. When one sits down and tries to list them individually, it's easy to leave 1 or 2 of them out. That's not a Dharma talk. My Dharma talks are when I just sit here with nothing in front of me and just talk. And that just happens spontaneously when I sit down with a whole list of questions or comments to talk about, and something comes to mind, I start speaking and don't get to those comments or questions and talk about those, but just talk. That's a Dharma talk. Unrehearsed, unpracticed, not coming from a book, not a lecture, not an analysis, nothing intellectual, just talk. That's Dharma. And that Dharma is something swagato, well proclaimed. The Dharma is excellently taught. Good in its beginning, middle and end. It encompasses morality, concentration and wisdom. So sila, samadhi, panya. Remember those categories of the Noble Eightfold Path? This is the Dharma. When it says well proclaimed, swagato, this is being that there is the Sangha, the Arya Sangha, the Noble Sangha, those closest disciples of the Buddha, who taught us the Dharma, even after the demise of the Buddha, or his parinibbana, one should say, because it was not a demise, that implies something negative, a falling away, but only of his physical body and thinking brain. But the citta, the essence of the Buddha, Tathagata, thus gone, liberated from all future rebirths and attainment to Nibbana, is not there to teach us anymore. We don't pray to the Buddha. We don't worship the Buddha. We pay respects, we honor the teacher, thus gone, Tathagata. But we listen to the well-proclaimed Dharma, swagato, of the self-realized Buddha. Sanditiko is the second of those qualities. Swagato sanditiko. Akaliko is timeless. We don't need to wait for a future event, a second coming of a Messiah, another Buddha. Now there are people whom not await, but foresee the next Buddha Sasana in the form of the next Buddha, the Maitreya Buddha. But the Buddha in these teachings, in the Dharma, proclaimed that this Buddha Sasana would be around for some 5,000 years. And at 2,570 years, we're halfway through. And that again to go, whilst there will remains these teachings, the Dharma and a Sangha. And then there will be an immeasurable, in our own context, our own scheme of things, amount of time before the next Buddha Sasana, when another Buddha will have to arise. There will be no more Dharma. It will be long forgotten. And they will have to become perfectly enlightened themselves, a Samma Sambuddha. So we don't need to wait for that event which is so far away, whilst we have the Dharma here and now, present, akaliko. Ehipassiko, finally, is inviting you to come and experience, see this truth, and inviting anyone to come and see this truth. Those of all castes, all faiths, all religions, all nationalities, all sexes, to come and just listen to the Dharma. And then see for yourself, or those to see for themselves, Opanaiko, that it's practiced, it's a practice that one does internally and leads you to experience the truth. Pachatam we di tabo winu hiti, realized by each and every one of those individuals through their own practice of sila, samadhi, panya, moral virtue, concentration, and the development of wisdom. And that Dharma maturing in them for themselves. So it's timeless. It's here and now. It's for everyone to be practiced by themselves and realized by themselves. It's not a doctrine to be believed in. It's not a teaching to be told and accepted without trying it out for yourselves and experience it working for yourself, experiencing it liberating your mind from suffering for yourself. So even the Buddha, our teacher, whom we revere, we pay respects to, we honor, by way of mindfulness of his memory, Buddha Nusati, is saying that the Dharma, his legacy, is there to be experienced by ourselves, understood by ourselves, practiced for ourselves, for our own liberation. Then there come the 9 qualities of the Sangha. Now, you can split these into 2 halves, those of the practice and those of the qualities of the Sangha. Now, the qualities don't come without the practice, and the practice is as a result of those qualities. So the 9 qualities of the Sangha are listed. I'm going to go through these a little more quickly, but then just generally we look at the Sangha as in this context, the ordained body of monks and nuns, that is bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. In the lineage of those ordained subsequently to the Arya Sangha, the noble disciple, the noble Sangha, that is the disciples of the Buddha and subsequent disciples of theirs, in generations, for want of a better word, whom have attained to enlightenment, become arahants themselves, free from suffering and liberated from future rebirth. The noble teachers whom we can reflect upon their attainments, and in more latter day writings, those of highly attained practitioners of in the Sangha, whom we may consider our teachers, the noble ones, all form part of that Sangha. And these days we can read biographies of such masters in the Dharma, practitioners, whom also attain to arahantship. And we have the legacy of their explanations, elaborations of the Dharma to read, to listen to, and to put into practice. But most importantly, put into practice and experience for ourselves. But through and by way of their example being shown to us for us to follow. So that Sangha needs to be supatipanno, good conduct. So have exemplary, perfect moral virtue. That is a doctrine, that is a discipline, that is the Vinaya that must be followed by the Sangha. They cannot, the Sangha, to be Sangha, a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, is not a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni if they breach certain precepts, but they must be following all of their 227 or 311 Patimokkha Vinaya rules, respectively, throughout all of their daily activities of body, speech and mind. That is the exemplary code of conduct. Exemplary because they are the Sangha, the example lay practitioners follow. Upright in conduct, ujupatipanno. They're practicing this Noble Eightfold Path. They're living in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path, meaning as well as unstained virtue, morality, sila, they're practicing meditation. The Sangha is a body of monks and nuns ordained into monastic life, renouncing worldly life for the purpose of concentrating 100% on the Noble Eightfold Path and its practice, sila, samadhi, panya. They're not intellectuals whom just study. Their practice must include also meditation. This is the middle path, the middle way. With the support of the lay practitioners, they're able to support themselves or be supported in their basic needs and requirements. So they don't fall into ways of asceticism or fall back into ways of opulence and luxury. But they remain on that middle path, the middle way. Naya Patipanno is the truth, the true way leading towards Nibbana. And some Chipatipanno, practicing the way of rightful conduct. So it's very important to know that the Sangha, as representatives of the Dharma and an example, must maintain and hold, most importantly, sila, moral virtue, and be exemplary in that. This is why there is the Vinaya. It has, in addition to those Patimokkha rules, many, many hundreds, thousands of other aspects to it in support of those, to keep the Sangha rigidly firm in its moral virtue. And this has remained unchanged for all of that time because it works. So there's no good saying, oh well, it's the modern day and age, monks should be able to do this and should be able to do that. No. That's just excuses veering away from the legacy of the Buddha. So there's no point reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha if one doesn't respect the Tathagata in his own example to us of exemplary moral virtue, and the creation of the Sangha and its example of exemplary moral virtue. That is the Sangha. That is the Sangha we follow. And as a result of that they're 100% intent on practicing towards Nibbana, so giving up worldly life, anything associated with it, entertainment, all of the luxuries of life, cars, eating in the afternoon, many robes and things like this, is just not on. One leads a simple life in a simple kuti, or in a room in a community, a monastery, supporting each other, kalyanamita, on the path, together, but still this simple, quiet way of existence, focusing on moral virtue, sila, focusing on meditation, concentration, samadhi, and by this way developing wisdom. And only through the realization themselves, these members of the Sangha, sharing their experience with others, sharing the wisdom by way of the way they live and their example and teachings, sharing the Dhamma, Panya. These, the Sangha, collectively, with those conjoined efforts, by way of the support of lay practitioners, lay men, lay women, are, as it goes on to say when reflecting on the 9 qualities of the Sangha, worthy of support. So worthy of gifts, hospitality, offerings, and reverential salutation. So people you'll see bow to the Sangha. You'll see people bowing to a monk, a bhikkhu, or a nun, a bhikkhuni. But when they're bowing to a monk, a bhikkhu, or a nun, a bhikkhuni, they're not bowing to the individual, the person. They're bowing to, they always must be wearing their robes, the monk or the nun, if someone is bowing to them, because you are bowing to the Sangha. It is worthy of referential salutation. Anjali Karyano. Hands in Anjali, and the action Karyano of bowing, reverential. To the Sangha, not the individuals. The individuals are representative of the Sangha through their moral virtue and their way of life. So these are the Sangha that are worthy of offering, so support. Dakineo. And from that word we have Dakaya comes. A Dakaya is a supporter of the Sangha. So I have, and I'm very grateful for, your support, which is Dakaya. You are supporting the Sangha, not me personally, because if I move on and someone replaces me, they'll be in similar robes and representative of the Sangha in all they do here. But I'm not moving on. I'm staying here. It is my intention, as long as I'm able to physically and can, and I'm allowed to, or welcome, as I have been so far, so graciously in this country, continue my practice here. And hopefully, by way of example, showing you also the way, the middle way. Whether it's in lay life, or whether you're thinking of taking up the path yourself in the direction of ordination. Which does, for those who write to me, many people write to me by way of email asking about the ordination process. There are talks on this channel about that, but remember, it takes a long time. But the Dharma is for everyone. This legacy of the Buddha is for everyone, lay practitioners and monastics. When you can, and it's appropriate to do so, yes, one very good way of ensuring your practice is only that you're not distracted by any other worldly activities, is to go and live in a monastery and eventually ordain into the Sangha. I say eventually because it's not for everybody. It may take some time living in a monastery to see if it's good for you or not. But it's difficult, it's not hard, it's not easy. It's the harder end of the middle way. You may be living in a different country, within a different cultural environment, climate, food. Things can be a struggle, but they're all part of the learning process and all part of renunciation. That is, giving up of your previous life, which may have been a lot more comfortable and even more conducive to your practice, if you have a suitable home environment. So there's nothing to stop any of you in lay life really focusing on your practice and benefiting from the comfort that you have around you. That doesn't mean to say you indulge, but as you already have a supportive environment, if you do, and you're fortunate enough to have, then use it to the best of what it offers. Finding a nice corner in your house that you can establish a small shrine to the Buddha by way of that practice of Buddha Nusati, reflecting on the qualities of our teacher, the Tathagata, thus gone, whom by his example showed us the way of the middle path. Practicing and understanding by way of learning, listening to Dharma talks, reading the suttas, or even chanting regularly. Joining me in the mornings. The majority of listeners, I've noticed, are in America, which I know has different time zones, but actually, roughly speaking, is the evening when we have morning puja here at 6 a.m, when we're chanting here at 6 a.m. It's perhaps 6 p.m. where you might be. Or in India, where they're in the same time zone as here. But otherwise, the live chanting, the morning reflections are at around 6 p.m. each and every day here on this channel, are recorded and available for you to watch anytime. So don't just listen to the questions and answers or just the Dharma talks as they're divided up into playlists for your convenience, but listen to those reflections in the morning, the chanting. Even if you just sit for the 15 minutes meditation and reflect on the qualities of the Buddha, reflect on the qualities of the Dharma, reflect on the qualities of the Sangha. Now, one thing you'll know, that monks and nuns cannot speak of their own attainments. And there is no leadership, there is no pontiff, there's no boss in the Sangha. There has to be some order in terms of practical way of getting things done, down to the very basics of, say, whom is in line when it goes to, for instance, getting food. So if a bunch of monks or nuns go on Pindapata together, or are sitting in a temple meditating or chanting, they will be in a certain order. And that comes as a result of the years that they have been ordained bhikkhus or bhikkhunis, so wearing these robes. And that is called vasas, because those years are counted in the number of rains retreats you have spent, the 3 months rains retreat in one place, in a monastery, with Sangha or alone, practicing intensively on some adhitanas, some determinations you have made at the beginning of that vasa. And that I've explained many times before, so you'll know all about that. But that's the only hierarchy there is in the Sangha. Now there are monks within that Sangha who have attained to great attainments, maybe Sotapanna, the first stage of enlightenment, Sakadagami, Anagami, once returner, non-returner, or even arahantship. There are arahant monks even in this day and age, those who have attained to enlightenment but are still alive physically and sharing the Dharma with us. But they'll never share that attainment with us. You'll know of it, of course, by way of their example, the way they live, their behavior, their sila. If you're living with them and spending time with them, their reactions to certain events, their qualities, the qualities represented in the 4 Brahma Viharas of metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, joy for everyone, and upekkha, equanimity. These we can see in those highly attained individuals. And it is those, the Sangha, they are part of the Sangha, part of a whole group we call the Sangha. So it is the Sangha that is worthy of offerings and respect, being that those within it have those qualities of moral virtue and may be well and highly attained as a result of their practice. But we don't single out individual members. It is in the suttas described by the Buddha more meritorious to offer to the more highly attained, so for instance arahants, members of the Sanghas, than say someone living in worldly life, unattained, who isn't practicing, isn't of the Sangha, your generosity. But this is just to delineate, to demonstrate in a real way what might happen with regards to your offerings. So for instance, you offer to the Sangha, not individuals within the Sangha, by way of dakaya, support to the Sangha, knowing that your offerings are well directed, well used. Now, of course, when offering to someone outside of the Sangha, whom is not part of the Sangha, but may be practicing well and do deserve your generosity each and every day, I re-offer all the dana I am offered to those whom are not in the Sangha. I don't go and look for arahants or look for a Sangha because I know they're well supported already. I go to places like the hospital to offer the food that I have surplus to my requirements. After all, I eat just one meal a day, and what's in my bowl is more than enough. In fact, a third of my bowl filled is sufficient food for me each and every day. It's a very big bowl. So that's enough. But the surplus, which is 3 times, 4 times, well, a lot more than that, my bowl would be filled probably 4 or 5 times on daily pindapata. So all that surplus food I give to those in the hospital whom need the food. And that by that way I'm practicing generosity. And also it is punya karma, good actions. But it helps, it's such a joyous experience, giving, isn't it? So we give, not for what we get back, but through the experience of giving itself. So that's why the Buddha has this sort of list of whom it's more meritorious and what it's more meritorious to give to, because if you had a choice, then you know that by giving to the Sangha, what you're giving is going to be well used. It should be that it's not so much used for the Sangha's own benefit, just their basic needs and support, the basic requisites of, where it says in those reflections, hospitality, it means accommodation, a roof over a monk's head, a kuti, a place to practice, some basic clothing, robes, that one meal a day, and basic medicine when it's required. Other than that, all offerings to the Sangha should be, or are, superfluous to requirements, and then available to be given to those in need. The Sangha should be like that, a conduit to support others. So the Buddha's teachings on whom it's meritorious to give to first, and that list of priorities, you know, then go down to feeding animals. I feed the cats here, I feed the ants, I feed the snakes, I feed whatever I can, creatures, the birds, the chipmunks, because that's how I can give. As a result of what's offered here to the Sangha by way of what you support me with as dayakas. I think I fed these cats too much today because they're tearing around, and I'm sure they're going to knock the camera over in a minute. But that's okay. They're expecting their seconds, I think, their second course this morning. So I give them a little bit to hopefully keep them out of the way whilst I'm talking, because they get rather excited in the morning sometimes. And then a bit more afterwards. But this isn't in the upper ends of offerings for punya karma, meritorious offerings, because of course what I offer the cats is just for them. If they have too much, they'll just leave it, but they won't go and help many others. But they might help each other. But when you offer to the Sangha, you should be confident in that your offerings will not only support the Sangha, but be going to support many others. And that is also true to say by way of Dharma. So by supporting the Sangha, you're supporting the Sangha to offer Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, to many, many others, whom can then benefit also from the word of the Buddha. So these are some just brief reflections on the qualities of the Buddha, the qualities of the Dharma, and the qualities of the Sangha. But I encourage you to pick up your chanting books and join me every day at 6 a.m. or at any time during any day, every day if you can, And by listening to the chanting or chanting along with it yourselves, reflect on those qualities and the refuge you've taken in the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha yourselves, along with me and many others, when you can, with the chanting book to hand, so you can, as I'm doing here, look at the English translation to those Pali words and really understand the meanings of each and every one. This is Buddha Nusati, Dharma Nusati, Sangha Nusati, or Triple Gem Nusati, Tisalana Nusati. They love moving these mats around. I don't think you can see them. You must have seen them whiz by then. But it's like I've seemed to have rejoined, it's like the rat race. They're very excited this morning, I think because they've been in hibernation mode all night because of the rain, and normally they're nocturnal. They're now getting rid of all of their energy, I think. This is the nature I'm so fortunately blessed to be living in. So, on that note, as I'm a little distracted now, I think I've spoken for a little while also. Until next time, hopefully there's something useful you can put into practice, use here. But if not, just let it go, put it down. Don't let it trouble you. If questions come as a result of this, put them in the comments or send me an email and they'll be attended to in the next coming talks. Each and every one of these talks is a Dharma talk, whether it's questions and answers or Dharma talk, reflections. It's an open discussion on Dharma. So until next time, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.